Just a moment. Hello everyone. Welcome to Academy of Astrology. I'm Rod Chang, and today with me is Mandy and Marcus. And as we talked about last week, today we're going to talk about the major important aspect of this week or two. This is the Mars-Venus conjunction, and it will trigger the Saturn-Uranus square. And I mean, most of us feel it. We just chat about it, and that's yes, that. Okay, so but before we talk about that, because I have to say, I always like the astrology because it can tell us so many things. Like at this moment on the news, we see many things happen, and that when if you think about it, it's always related to a little bit about the Saturn square Uranus if you look at it carefully. And this is mundane astrology, and somehow it will has impact on individual, like if you have personal planet nearby, and that will really kind of let you have some impact on you. So this is kind of what I enjoy about mundane astrology. And last weekend we invite Sue, and Sue also talking about that, say the outer planet cycle is kind of important for mundane astrology. You should enjoy this so much. Mandy, what do you think? Because you were there.
Yeah, I mean, Sue did an absolutely fantastic talk. It was a crash course in mundane astrology. So it talked about the important things about mundane astrology, what to look for and how to approach it, and that the cycles are very important. And she focused on the big current cycle, which is the Saturn square Uranus. And it was a fantastic start to the mundane series of lectures. And I think the next one is Darby Costello.
Darby, yes, Darby Costello.
Week on Saturday, is that right? A week on
yes,
Saturday.
On the 10th of July. And she's going to talk about the title is called Writing the Past to Navigate the Present, Historical Cycle with as a teacher. But I know she's going to talk about the outer planet in different signs. Pluto in Capricorn and Neptune in Pisces. And she will go through the history when last time when these two planets in these two signs met each other, what's going to happen. And I think this is, if people think, well, that's too far, not important. You're wrong, because these two planets are going to form a sextile. Apart from last year, they already formed a little bit, and this year they will come to meet each other again, and this sextile will stay until 2032, if I remember. They will keep coming back until 2032. So that is super important. Slow-moving planet met each other. So I think this Darby's this lecture will be very interesting. But on the 17th, more interesting is Lin going to talk about Saturn-Uranus square. And we know from early this year and in June, we have this exact square, and they still have another one in December. That would be kind of super important. But nevertheless, that one more important talk I have to talk about is Monday's talk. Monday going to talk about the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. And you know what? She bring it in a very practical view to discussion about the rise of globalism. Monday.
That's right. That's right. And I'm looking at the Jupiter Saturn conjunctions literally through the ages, like going back to ancient times, and looking at how the themes of development in civilization through the different elements, because those conjunctions spend a couple of hundred years or so falling in one element before they move, and so you see really relevant things happening. And also there's a transition period of about 40 to 60 years where they're moving from one element to the other, and you see rapid developments and chaos and all sorts of things, and it's going to be fantastic. So we're going to go right from the start. It's an hour and a half, very fast moving. We're going to go right from sort of Sumerian sort of BCE all the way through to sort of the current day, and how, you know, the seeds were sown then in terms of the rise of globalism. And I'm not going to say any more than that. There's a description on the but I'm looking forward to it. It's a really interesting talk.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, 31st of July, and anyway, tonight, with what we're talking about tonight, Saturn Uranus again, and with the Mars, the Venus Mars conjunction. That's correct, isn't it? Tonight?
Yes.
What's happening in the sky right now?
Oh, what's happening in the sky right now? This square is going to trigger. Is already Mars already triggered, and Venus joined it. And you know what is interesting? The recent news. There is a 3 news. I was a kind of a shocking, and you couldn't say you didn't see this coming. If you know the keyword of these 3 planets, you will see, yes, they're coming. So the first news was the Bill Cosby being released from prison. So the judge overturned the sentence. So he's been released from the prison. The second news was Britney Spears. Her court case has also been rejected by judge, but some people say that is not totally right, but she can apply it again formally. So that's another thing.
Controversial, very controversial.
Yes.
Control, controversy, alleged sex crimes. I mean, it all sort of fits those themes, doesn't it?
Totally. That the Mars Saturn being very cruel, often it can manifest in extreme cruelty.
Yeah, and then quite interesting because Venus joined it recently. Venus just stepped in. She really has no idea what she, what she just walk in. But from today's news, I think is the French government or French authorities start to investigate it. Those big fashion brand. Their production, they get involved with those cruelty in China.
Interesting.
And they started investigating for include Zara, H&M, all the big brand. So this is interesting because Venus, clothes, those big brands, fashion. I was like, wow.
There was I've got one more potentially to add to that list, although this is probably a little bit less headliney, but I don't know if either of you guys saw this. I only saw this because I don't watch the news. I heard Russell Brand talking about it on his podcast. There's a clip circulating at the moment of people losing of this lady losing her absolute shiz on a plane and punching somebody because they said you need to be and basically starting this riot on a plane, like, just everybody, it became a sort of big pylon and like, so I think, but the thing was that the report was this week that the incidence of violent assaults against airline cabin crew and stuff has massively increased over the pandemic, and that's coming out this week. And there's actually this clip being circulated on social media of this woman, interestingly, as Venus went into Leo, like being told you can't do that and just literally punching the guy straight in the face. So I mean, it's one exemplar of a wider problem where something like the incidents a couple of years ago was like, I'm going to mangle the figures, folks. I can't remember, but it was something like 4,000 and now it's 20,000. The incidence of violent assault since the pandemic has exponentially exploded. Because people are frustrated. So that's what this is about, really.
Wow. I mean, Rod, what you were saying about Venus kind of joining the sort of the sorts of Mars, Saturn, Uranus configuration, it reminded me of yesterday. A statue was unveiled in London of the so-called fashion icon and so-called most beautiful woman in the world, the late Princess Diana, Princess of Wales. And that was really interesting because it's, it was the big story on that. I think, first of all, it's been, the style of the statue has been met with controversy. Some people like it, other people don't like it. They want to know what's it all about. It was unveiled by the two brothers, you know, the Duke of Sussex, Duke of Windsor, Duke of Cambridge, sorry, Harry and William, who are at war. So you've got that, you know, they're falling out and there's rivalry. You've got that sort of, that Mars element. But that made me think about statues themselves. And statues is very Saturnian because it's Saturn sets things in stone, and it is literally stone and rock. It's literally the composite of the, you know, the composition of statues. And it celebrates the old, the dead, the traditional, the celebrated. It, you know, it represents the old order and the old morality and the status quo. We've got Uranus there, so statues have suddenly become very controversial. You know, we'll see a lot more opinion about the Diana statue.
That I don't know if you saw this today, Mandy. You've just reminded me with that. Absolutely apropos. Did you? Was that where you were going? Am I interrupting your flow?
With Canada, you go for it.
No, you go. I'm totally preempting you.
No, I'm sure you'll have more to say than me. You know, and then another story today was, you know, royalty, old royalty, the current Queen of England, Elizabeth II, and also Queen Victoria. You know, the Queen of colonialism, we could say. Some statues of those two on the day after Princess Diana's statue was unveiled and set up have been toppled in Canada, and I think it was about anger at the deaths of Indigenous children.
Yes, that's right.
Historical.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because of course we think of Leo as the sign of royalty, and Aquarius is the sign of the common people, and like you're saying, the Constitution, and Saturn retrograde is almost like the Constitution being reversed, and this anger. You know, it's like it all fits.
And Uranus brings revolt, doesn't it? You know, revolt and sort of, you know, we've got to question what we celebrated in the past as sort of being the right thing, you know, and that reminded me again of Edward Colston. This happened in Bristol, England, in June, actually 7th of June 2020. You know, the Saturn Uranus was sort of just coming in at that point, but it made worldwide news because in light of the Black Lives Matter protests, there was a statue of Edward Colston. He was born in Bristol. He was a merchant and a philanthropist, and he was celebrated in Bristol. There's loads of things named after him in Bristol, buildings and his statue, and I think even like educational institutions. He was a philanthropist. But you know, in the sort of revisiting of history that we've had, you know, which is a very Saturn Uranus thing. It's you know, people have started talking about he was very involved and made a lot of money in the transatlantic slave trade. So they toppled his statue. So that kind of revolt against, you know, again, the statue, the stone, the Saturn.
Yeah, and
I actually had a quick look at just one more thing, and then I'll let you guys talk, because I just wanted to say I looked at his chart, and he was born on the 2nd of November in 1636 in Bristol. That's on no birth time, you can imagine. Anyway, they probably didn't even record them then. And what's interesting in the mundane astrology or any kind of thing, you can look at the chart of a dead person. If something happens in relation to that dead person long after they're dead, you can see the transits. And would you believe it, for 7th of June 2020, Uranus was opposite his sun in Scorpio.
There you go.
And they toppled his statue and they threw it in the river. And now actually what they've done, they it's covered in graffiti, and they've laid the statue basically in a museum on its back with all the graffiti on it. So it's made it into a new piece of art.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So the old versus the new coming together, the Saturn Uranus. This is the old statue and this is the new version of this statue.
Yes, I mean, and of course none of it, all of this being by square, and with Mars adding the extra sort of incendiary, violent, and it's all like square and opposition. It's none of it's going to be like measured, kind and reasonable. It's all just going to be like bang, you know, like over and whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I think all this is a part of the Saturn Uranus square, and this is like just sitting up there, you know, for because we know all this news from early last year or a little bit early, like a BLM start, and then the things is going on like this because this Saturn Uranus square, when they start approach each other, the things already building up. When they get approach, when they get a little bit exact, and that would intensify the things. Then when the inner planet goes by, then will trigger it. And those inner planets quite interesting because they bring the flavor, just like what we talking about a statue. Just we talking about statue, and that's Venus. In the beginning of what I remember last week I think a little bit early we were talking about we are expecting they are a little bit softly done. You remember? We say, I remember. That's what I say. I say,
me too.
Venus,
I think it be toned down a little bit.
Yes, and then no, it's not really toned down, but with Venus quality.
Yes, it's just Venus stuff getting involved in the mix, isn't it? Like fashion and tattoos, and women getting violent. You know?
So,
a bit of that.
Wow, that is that's one.
A little bit of that.
Yeah, that's one thing I like. Astrology is like it will surprise you, and that astrology. I don't like to say that in that kind of a very, very confident thing. It's like astrology is right, but I like that it's always surprise you, and it's only you couldn't imagine that.
yeah. It's like it's fully the map is not the territory, isn't it? Like you can read the map and you can see the weather report, but then it feels very different standing in the rain. Do you know what I mean? It's like
I like this exactly.
I like that. Yeah, but Venus and Mars, I mean, it is, Venus and Mars is a combination, especially when it's a dynamic combination, is physically expressive. It wants to express itself dynamically and physically, whatever that's trying to express, whether it's pleasure and harmony or affection or love or even more sexual things, it's kind of, and it does it. And I think Venus and Mars can kind of do it in style with a bit of grace as well. And,
I mean, one thing I'd add to that, Mandy, was in traditional astrology, Leo was a sign that was described, I think, as feral, because there were some signs that were bestial, like the animal shaped ones, like Aries, but Leo is actually, I think, am I right, Rod? I don't know, one of the feral signs. In other words, if you've got a planet that's acting badly in Leo, it's gonna act like a wild freaking animal, so it's like, whereas Aquarius is a humane sign. Human signs that will so Saturn is still going to be Saturn. He's still going to be a pain in the whatever, but Saturn is going to be doing his bureaucratic in a really humane way. So it's going to be the letter, it's going to be the official edict, it's going to be the parliamentary ruling that says no. And the reaction to that is going to be kind of like a wild animal, like so I think it's very that energy that we're seeing right now. And then with the Uranus, it's all getting forced out in Uranus in Taurus, which I know Mandy talked about in a couple of videos, which people should check out if they haven't seen them. Great. It's like the physical, like the physical structures of things getting broken and toppled and changed in this very sudden, drastic way as a result of all that frustration.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, it's I can actually feel all that energy actually as we're talking quite energetically tonight, aren't we? There's a fair bit of passion and excitement running with that as we're talking about these things. No, it's nice. It's interesting actually, because I know sometimes when we give talks, or where we sit in talks or listen to talks where people are talking about Neptune, things get a bit kind of. It's a metalogue, isn't it? I've just heard that metalogue.
Yeah, I always remember Frank Clifford taught me that word, and I always remember it because he used to tell an anecdote about talking about the TV, talking about Uranus, and then a TV exploded or something. I've always remembered the word metalogue.
Metalogue.
It's a great word, but I think I may be importing some, because as you know, I'm a Uranus rising, so we're at my Uranus opposition, with that opposition squaring my ascendant. So I'm just like,
I see. Yes. Let's go a little bit like a focus. But I know that we couldn't discuss, we couldn't talk about Venus Mars conjunction without talking about the Saturn Uranus square. But if we only look at this Venus Mars conjunction, what does that mean? Because I know when they go into when Venus chasing Mars, I like to use the word. That's from Darby's word. Venus chasing Mars because it's going to they move a similar speed, and then this conjunction will last a little bit longer than the other conjunction because they move. They move similar. So what does that mean in the astrology when Venus going to conjunct with Mars, Marcus?
Oh, I mean, just generally speaking, it depends on the individual level. I think you'd probably be better on the mundane level, Rob. But on the
no. I
level,
mean individually.
Fine. Then it's as Mandy was saying, it's sort of like it's usually kind of a very archetypally sexual combination. It turns up the heat, particularly in Leo. So it means, for example, if there wasn't the opposition to Saturn, because that complicates things as well.
Okay.
Assuming that there was no opposition to Saturn, then that would maybe be a particularly active period for dating websites and people going on dates and it would heat up the social thing. So in a non-lockdown Saturn situation, we would be seeing, like discos and parties and things like Ibiza going mental, and everyone's more parties, more people hooking up, just more of that kind of fiesta. And it's kind of like, I see that combo as it can be like a stag night or a Hindu combo. They're not acting particularly humanely in Leo. They are just like, it's like kind of having a drunken brawl in the street, and then like hooking up and but having a party and that kind of vibe. The opposition to Saturn puts a big old damper on it, and also puts complications into those kind of situations. So it's like the evening out in a bar, which ends up in a fight where somebody's leg gets broken. It's that kind of vibe.
Yeah, it's very interesting because why are you talking about that? You're talking about bar, you're talking about club things. I was like, hey, wait a minute. I think because we say this pair of conjunction will exactly be later, and I just quick check, it's around like 12 July to 13 July, and that is the time I think UK government were thinking about reopening. When was it? I think it should be around that time.
What's really interesting on that date actually is that this is a bit esoteric for some of our viewers and listeners, I know, but even though Venus and Mars will conjunct quite far past the opposition of Saturn, they're still in opposition. So Saturn's still putting his little chill blast on them. Yeah. But they're actually exactly in square to Saturn through the Anticyon, which is too complicated to explain now.
Yes,
it's like a hidden exact aspect to Saturn while they're conjuncting at that degree. So Saturn's still opposing visibly in the sky, but there's also a hidden square to Saturn at the same time, which is, so that's interesting. But more positively, on the same day, there's Mercury trining Jupiter. So it's kind of like there might be some complications with that bar or club opening or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know, that people might be communicating better.
Maybe.
Hopefully.
Fine to see, Charlotte.
Here's another thing I just remembered as you were talking, and Marcus, you were talking about dating and basically in the UK it was probably the same in other countries during the height of the pandemic, the first wave, blah blah blah, last year. Sexual hookups, with someone you didn't live with or you weren't in a bubble with, were against the law, basically, because of the spread of COVID. One of the people in the UK who was responsible for that law, our health secretary, Matt Hancock, was actually just very recently, like last week, caught out having exactly what he said was banned, which was a sexual hookup. And also, so sort of Saturn caught up with him. It was on camera, the morality of it being filmed.
You called it last week, Mandy. You pointed out that obviously he'd been caught, and then obviously he's resigned this week, hasn't he? So it's like as that Mars Saturn became exact on his sun, it's been like he's had to resign. So.
Yeah, and don't forget he has Venus in 8 degrees Scorpio and Mars in 18 degrees Scorpio.
Yeah, wasn't his sun in Scorpio as well?
The Libra, I think.
Oh, okay, so not his sun, it was the Venus.
Yeah, Venus and Mars. Okay. Venus and Mars.
With Saturn can't get away with it forever.
No,
You always have to pay the price, don't you, for what you do? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I know you mentioned about that because I always have an image. I think it was influenced by Ling, because last week when we have a little bit of chat after the Sue's lecture, we have that mundane WorldScope mundane panel. We chat a little bit about what happened once a month, and then Ling says something quite interesting, because we talk about Bolsonaro's chart, the Brazilian president's chart, and he say the transit with that is like a little bit like a, you know, little like a kind of a very spicy up, a little bit like an tense relationship in there. And then I like that metaphor. And I certainly think when you talk about that, I was thinking, oh, that is kind of a Mars Venus met each other. So it's like some people chasing what they love, but the influence while that time they are chasing the things they want, they also
it's against the rules.
Yeah, and also experience the world is changing.
Yeah, it's against the rules, and people can't.
Yeah,
it's like there's some factor that spoils the fun, or that prevents the thing and causes frustration and influence and creates this disruption.
Yes. Yeah, so this is very interesting, and this all in the astrology. You know, what you can say, as we always say, the best way to learn astrology, it doesn't matter you like mundane astrology or not, but look at the chart, today's chart, and what happened in the news. You will learn a lot.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? I mean, I did want to mention briefly, I don't know if you guys have more to say about the Venus Mars, because we could say a lot more. I mean, there's a lot that can be said about that, but just about, and this isn't next week, it's the 12th, isn't it? So it's the Monday the 12th. We're going a bit ahead, but when the Venus Mars actually conjoin that day, that, as I said, there is that Mercury Jupiter trine, which is I sometimes think we sometimes focus on the tough aspects and forget to mention, because at the moment Mercury is back squaring Neptune, so it's more like lies and confusion. And just for that freaking day or couple of days, it's like we might get a little injection of truth, you know, just a little bit of like people having reasonable, humane, nice conversation. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, yeah, guys, everything has gone to shit, but you know, we're going to actually start talking about this reasonably.
Fantastic.
Well, yes, this is the most interesting in astrology, and you can always guess, but you never know what exactly going to happen, to be honest, because there's too many possibility. Yes, so I'm so happy to have the two my favorite astrologer, to my colleagues join me to have this kind of chat once a week. This is lovely, but I have to say this is about the time we have to stop here. But don't forget, we have the Darby on the 10th of July, and then Ling Bells on 17th of July, and the Monday on 31st of July, talking about the Saturn Jupiter cycle. Yeah. Okay. So, well, yeah, by the way, the next week I will upload the Link's interview. Super interesting.
Great.
So yeah, so like you know, stay in tune and subscribe our YouTube channel, and check out our website and Facebook. Okay, see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Ooh, just a moment.